My name is Jacob Adams. I'm a fitness and leadership coach. I help people just like you achieve more, get to the next level. Have you ever wondered why it is that God allows pain and suffering? Why it is that God allows us to go through some of the heaviest trials of our life when we need it the least, when it seems the most unfair? I know that happened to me earlier this year with a car accident when I was on fire doing a competition for $25,000 with Advocare. That happened to me. And it was at the worst possible time. And I know the first experience I had with it was with these questions, with these doubts, was that I was a child or a kid about 12, 14 years old, and I was into rollerblading. And it was around, I forget the date or so, but I was rollerblading and I was gonna race against a bunch of people. My rollerblades weren't the best, and I started skating and I thought I was gonna win this contest. It was for some trinket at the store, at the skate store. And there I was, skating, loving my life, and there was a competition for who was gonna win. And I broke my wrist. I fell and I broke my wrist. It was a terrible fall, and my wrist literally, both bones broke, and my wrist was like that, coming off the hand. It was like, I could still recall it. It was a very disgusting situation and feeling. And well, I remember asking myself why God had allowed that to happen in my life. And I immediately started doubting, and resentment and anger built in my life at that early age. Like I said, I was an altar boy. I was wearing this little medallion of the Virgin Mary, and I was so angry. And I was so angry at God that here I was praying to Him all the time, and wanting to get closer to God, and I break my wrist. I thought it was a complete irony, or it should have not happened that way, I thought, as a young boy. And that wouldn't be the first time. Sooner or later, with years past, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, I tried to get closer to God again. And I ended up going to, after being mad at God for a while, I ended up going to this church called The Door. Now, The Door ended up being some religious fundamentalist Christian church, fanatic, people throwing brimstone out their mouth saying, if you don't do this, you're going to hell. And if you hang out with these people, you're going to hell. And to be short and blunt about it, that's what their general message was. I was into bodybuilding, that was not of God, I liked a woman, my high school crush, God didn't want her for me. So it was like everything I did was wrong. And so there I was searching for God once again, and then again, further being told I was going to hell and all types of things were going on. And so I found myself again pretty angry and denouncing my belief in God, because I was like, damn, man, there's no way to be at peace with this. And so I began my search for evolution. Maybe evolution would be the real reason, the real core of what made us as humans evolve from monkeys, I thought, or Darwinian answers could have been it. And that didn't sit very long. The name of my company, or the name of this channel, is Evolution Training. So it didn't stick long, and there was some of the origin was from that time, but that's not why the company's name Evolution, by the way. In any case, I kept my search on. I started, maybe Kabbalah was one of the answers, right? I became potentially an atheist, and I tried that on for a few years, potentially agnostic. Maybe there was no God, I thought. As you can see, and that ran on for another 10 years. And it wasn't until, around 2008 or so, I began to open my heart up to the life, or the purpose-driven life was a book I read. I was going through a breakup, and also Man's Eternal Quest and the writings of Yogananda had found me. And I was like, you know what, maybe there is a God, and maybe just people are explaining it wrong and explaining God wrong. And so I started opening my heart up again after all my life, or a lot of my life, running, or a big part of my life I had started running from God. Here I was once again opening my life to God. It's not like I became the most holiest or the most Christian boy in the world. It was a slow process that I did on my own time, in my own world. Maybe in the shower I'd pray before I went to work. I prayed every night in my own heart. I prayed to God. I would read the Bible here and there on my own accord. And that was my life. That's what I would do to get closer to God. And some of you that have watched some of my other videos know that it wasn't until 2012 or so, after trying everything and doing things in my own way, sort of keeping God in the morning in prayer and moving on through my day, I eventually hit rock, like not a rock bottom per se, but sort of a sadness in it, or a cyclical aspect. And that's where I opened myself up to meditation and getting closer to God in my heart purely. And here we are, 6 years later. I'm meditating once a day at least in a deep way, and letting it be known on a public note that I am a believer. And that again it came from a very challenging place. I'm still not a perfect man. This isn't a video I'm making to state that I'm a perfect man at all. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons I never wanted to be publicly Christian or claim God is because I didn't want to be scrutinized, or I thought it'd be easier to just people not know or think about or whatever. I just didn't want to be the guy, oh, look at him, he's a Christian, or this and that. I didn't want that pressure, to be quite honest with you. And so here we are all these years later, and today I was just doing some studying and research, and I had, I was going through some stress, as I know that anyone that watches a video like this likely has experienced or will experience stress, pressure. And I got to analyzing what's known as a stack. A stack is where we analyze triggers in our life or pressures, and we go through the feelings and discover and ask yourself questions. That is what you're feeling and the trigger true? Is the story you're telling yourself true? Etc., etc. Now this you say technology is designed by Garrett J. White, and it's out of the Warrior's Way. And furthermore, so going on. So through the revelations that I found there, I am able to tell you today one of my biggest revelations. And I'll be sharing those with you. The revelation itself doesn't ever mean that the work is over or that our life is forever solved. I see it as the revelation that I uncovered today is more like a continuing of ideas you may have already heard, yet the connection that I made and the understanding that I got from the revelation and applying and living the revelation is the work, and it is the beauty. It is both the work and the beauty. See, I found that if you can find the beauty in your work, then that is a form, a high level, a type of enlightenment. If you look at most people's issues comes from a place of not accepting, anger, just being sort of complainers about the work that they must do. Yet if you can understand the work that you do is a way of harmony, like this video is a type of harmony. It's a harmonious expression. One of my skills is to coach, and so to get in front of the video is to get on here to reach people like yourself. If I didn't have pressure to push me, I wouldn't make the video. The pressure pushes me to give of myself so that people like yourself can get some insight, and then the cycle continues. If I didn't do my part, then it's harder for you to do your part. It's harder for everybody to do their part. See, you impact people, I impact people, and if we can embrace the impact that we need to make, we become a harmonious instrument in the symphony of life. Okay? And so today I wanted to share with you why pain, suffering, and pressure, tests, trials, tribulations, all part of what pushes us to the next level. As I told you in the beginning, pressure, or I help people get to the next level and achieve more. So prior to this video even, I found myself sometimes, like angry or stressed or something with certain trials. It could be in the past, relationship trials. It could be career trials. It could be trials in achieving certain metrics. Like I said, I was in a car accident that put me out of commission for a little bit in my training. I was in a car accident out of nowhere. You see what I'm saying? There's always a trial when you least expect it, and sometimes how do you work through that? Okay? And so prior to this conversation here and this revelation, this is not like it just came to me all one day, as much as today I excavated within myself through the stack, and then I came to the revelation. I was like, I get it now. And so I'll be sharing that with you. So as of now then, prior to now, I didn't have this insight, and now what I'm seeing is that there's a mathematical harmony, a mathematical alignment, a mathematical genius to pressure, pain, struggles, trials and tribulations, and your life's calling. In other words, it's a synergistic science. They correlate and work together. I'll give you one quick example. Let's just say, I found that, for example, my dad, he was always out of shape and never really committing to his exercise and nutrition. So I decided to push forward and get into exercise and fitness. Does that make sense? That said, that the pressure pushed me into getting deeper into fitness and health. And here I am, a fitness and leadership coach. You see, the pressure pushed me, the tests, the trials, the sadness pushed me here. It doesn't mean I didn't feel those sadnesses. But with that, I know what sadness feels like. I know what sadness and trials feel like. So I know what you may feel like in sadnesses and trials. And in that, we are connected. And in that pain, in those trials, in knowing what that feels like, that magnitude, we are very much of the same tribe, this human tribe. That's one example. Okay? So I'm going to show you what I found. So here, the framework, this is literally hot off the press. I wrote this down a few minutes before I got on this video. This video has been going on for 12, 13 minutes. Let's say 15 minutes ago, I wrote this down. Okay? So what I'm going to show you is, if you look at this here, it says pressure and pain at the bottom. Meaning you probably have a level of pressure, pain, trial, tribulation, question. Why does God allow pain and suffering, right? Why does God allow you to go through the pressure? Now, an egotistical response, meaning, the first time I broke my wrist, my response was anger and resentment. This last time I was in a car accident, I almost died. What the revelation I got that next day after living through that accident was that God is keeping me here because I have work to do and He wants me here. So since God wants me here, then I have to walk in that manner. I have to walk in that truth. Make sense? So see how there's a different aspect already. The ego as a young boy was anger and resentment. As a more mature man, I now see the humility needed. So humility would be the anti-ego, as you could see. Now, let's just say if you move this out of alignment, if you don't submit the ego to God, if you don't submit the ego to the soul, if the free will and the soul and the ego are not on alignment, meaning, let's just say your soul wants to believe that God has a purpose for you. It wants to believe that you have a purpose. It wants to, but you know what? Why not just get high all the time and do drugs? Jordan Peterson said that doing drugs and chaos and anarchy is not a mystery. That's understandable. The real mystery is peace. And so as you can see here, that's where we're going here. This is order, meaning the ego can say resentment. Why is there God? God shouldn't allow this, and God shouldn't do that. And that's like anger, resentment, frustration, reaction. But if we understand that there's a purpose still, and the free will acts in it from the power of the soul, and lets the ego silent so it can stay in alignment with these things, then we could submit to God, have faith, and eventually get closer to God. And this is where the genius behind this was this, to me, was it's an alignment. And it's interesting that if you look at like a chakra or a yogi meditator, the 7 chakras, right? That there's a line, the vertebrae here, and the higher consciousness, meaning the third eye, the Christ center, is up here, and it's in the higher consciousness, closer to God. And it takes faith, and the lower aspects, meaning the animal natures, are in the lower aspects of the body, right? The root chakras, sexual organs, the natures of, being an animal, right? Or being more about pleasure and stuff like this. It's not to say that pleasure is evil or to talk about that. I lived many of my years with those things in mind. What I'm getting at here in this video was, the main takeaway for me was, if we submit our will, our free will, if we submit our ego, if we submit our purpose. See, our purpose is, for me, for example, what was my takeaway was like, okay, so I have pressure, and what's the pressure? The pressure is to produce a certain level of growth. Okay, that's the pressure. Because if not, I won't be able to support a family, right? Like many of us. If we don't produce a certain level of growth, we can't support a family. So there is almost like an accountability, and that is because our purpose holds us accountable. And the pressure is, well, if you don't push yourself, you won't get the purpose. You won't achieve the goal, right? And now the ego is the challenge to keep you, it's a temptation. It's a lure away from the purpose, meaning, hey, just go drink all day. Go and just feel like drunk today. Go get blazed all day. Go and take Xanax all day and go gamble. Don't worry about the purpose. Don't worry about the focus. Don't worry about focusing on that. And the pressure keeps mounting and mounting. And eventually, if we don't give attention to this, chaos happens. And we say, well, why is God this? Why is that God? But if we completely submit, then there becomes a straight line, meaning the ego is not over here, and the free will is not over here, and there's not chaos here. It's all in alignment. It's all submitting to one line. In that submission, there's a harmonious effect. Naturally, anyone that were to see this video is going to either start resonating and saying, yeah, I get it, or understand that's coming from a good place, or you could hate me and say, you know what, screw this guy, he's crazy. It's fine. This was a revelation I wanted to share with you. I hope you've enjoyed it. Comment below. I'd love to hear your insight, and have your sincere questions or sincere perspective that may help others. God bless.